Ever look at your favorite t-shirt and just wonder, how does that design stay on, wash after wash? It's not just ink on cloth, you know? It's actually a pretty high-stakes chemical dance. So let's pull back the curtain on the incredible industrial science that keeps our clothes looking so colorful.
I mean, think about it. If you just splash some paint onto a piece of fabric, it would wash right out, right? So, what's the secret? How are the designs on our clothes so incredibly durable? Well, the answer is pretty wild. It's a multi-step process that literally tricks molecules into forming a permanent bond. And trust me, getting this right is everything. On one hand, you have a perfect print. It's sharp, it's vibrant, it lasts for years. But when it goes wrong, you get these common failures, dull, faded colors, or that messy bleeding that just ruins the whole design. It's literally the difference between a shirt you love for years and a one-wash wonder that gets lost in the back of your closet. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to start with the unseen science of the fabric itself. Then we'll walk through the 3 crucial steps in printing. First, building the foundation. Second, making that color permanent. And third, adding the final polish. Then we'll zoom out and take a look at the bigger picture. All right, step 1, the foundation. You know, every great artist knows you have to prime a canvas before you paint, right? Well, printed fabric is exactly the same. You can't just throw ink onto raw cloth and expect it to work. This first foundational step is all about preparing the material to perfectly receive that ink. This stage is called pre-treatment, and if there's one word I want you to remember, it's mandatory. Seriously, this is not an optional tune-up. It's chemically and physically essential. Without it, the entire process fails before a single drop of ink even touches the fabric. Think of the pre-treatment solution as a team of specialists, where each one has a very specific job. First, you've got hygroscopic agents. They act like a moisturizer, keeping the fabric just damp enough for the ink to really penetrate. Next, you have alkalis. These are like the chemical matchmakers, creating the perfect environment for the dye and fabric to, well, fall in love and bond. And finally, there are thickeners. They're like tiny traffic cones, keeping the ink from spreading out and making sure your design stays sharp. So if you skip this step, the dye has absolutely nothing to bond with. The color will be weak, and the moment it hits water, poof, it's gone. You get absolutely zero wash fastness. It is a total and complete failure every time. So our canvas is prepped. Now it's time for the real magic trick, transforming that liquid ink into a permanent part of the fabric itself. This is where the color goes from being temporary to being forever. And the hero of this transformation might surprise you. It's a surprisingly old-school tool, steam. As the industrialist Sir Oliver Lyle once said, steam is industry's most wonderful, flexible, and adaptable tool. It's this raw force of nature, but here it's used with incredible precision. The secret ingredient here is just pure energy. The heat and moisture from the steam kickstart a huge chemical reaction. It actually swells the fabric's fibers and activates the chemicals from our pre-treatment, allowing the dye molecules to form a permanent covalent bond. Now, that's a bond so strong it's like the dye and the fabric are fused together at the molecular level. The dye is no longer on the fiber, it's now part of the fiber. And just so we're clear, we're not talking about a simple handheld steamer you might have at home. Oh no, this image gives you a sense of the incredible scale we're dealing with. This is a Morrison dye steamer, a massive piece of industrial equipment built to apply perfectly conditioned steam with absolute uniformity across thousands of yards of fabric. And inside that giant box, the fabric goes on a very carefully choreographed journey. It winds its way along this serpentine or snake-like path, which is precisely engineered to control how long every single inch of fabric is exposed to the steam. This dwell time is what ensures the chemical reaction is complete and totally consistent. Okay, the color is locked in. You'd think the job is done. But the next step is maybe the most counterintuitive of all, the final polish. And this raises a really logical question. If the color is truly permanent, why on earth would you wash it so intensely right at the factory? Doesn't that just seem risky? Well, it's because you're washing away everything that isn't permanent. See, even in a perfect process, there are always going to be some leftover chemicals and unfixed dye molecules just sitting on the surface. If you leave them there, they'll cause that dreaded color bleeding in the first wash at home. So here's the key. This intensive factory wash is what guarantees true long-term color fastness. And this is another precision process. First, a cold rinse washes away those thickeners we talked about earlier. Then, a hot soaping stage acts like a magnet, lifting away any of those stubborn, unfixed dye particles. And finally, after all that chemistry, a softening agent is used to restore that cozy, comfortable feel we all love. So, we've just followed a single t-shirt through this incredible scientific journey. But now let's zoom out, because this whole process doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a massive global industry with very real human and environmental costs.
I mean, the list of materials involved is a really sobering reminder of the potential dangers. Workers in the industry can be exposed to hazardous substances like formaldehyde, certain azo dyes, and even fine fiber dust that can cause serious respiratory issues. And the scale is just staggering. By 2025, the global textile market is projected to be worth over $660 billion. That is a colossal amount of fabric, which means a colossal amount of water, energy, and chemicals are being used every single day. This brings us to a really critical choice: using a modern, optimized process that minimizes its impact versus an older, unoptimized, wasteful one that pollutes our planet. The difference in environmental impact is really night and day, which is why optimizing these industrial processes is so vital. So the next time you pull on your favorite shirt, take a moment to appreciate the incredible science that went into its creation, but also maybe consider the true cost of that color for the people who made it and for the planet we all share. It's a complex story, and it's woven into the very fabric of our lives.